I shivered. It was chilly in here, and I had a sudden longing to be home, away from this dismal place with its associations of broken lives and encroaching despair, and away from this bloody awful smell. I was just turning back towards the door when, from somewhere behind me, I heard a sound that didn't quite belong. The scrape of something metal on concrete. I stiffened, conscious suddenly that I had no business being here, and with that thought I felt an immediate sense of how exposed I was, how very alone. I held my breath and listened. What was that? Footsteps? Yes, I heard them quite distinctly now. They were coming from the office. Dan and the others. I was about to call out, but something made me hesitate. What if it wasn't them? Who was out there in the darkness of the office? I swallowed, forcing myself to calm down. There was no need to panic, I told myself. My imagination was working overtime, that was all. I was just getting myself in a state over what was probably someone with a totally justifiable reason for being here. Only right now I couldn't think of one. It was then that I heard voices, men's voices, and they were coming nearer. Two men talking, one of them in a hard, grating tone, and the others low and with an accent. I could hear what they were saying now. Someone's been here! What the fuck? I recognised the voice. It was Gary. Look, there's tea bags and milk and stuff. I heard again the ring of metal on concrete, but I didn't stop to listen to any more. My brain raced through the possibilities. If I ran for the passage, was there an exit other than the boarded up front door? Did the loo have a window? I didn't know. I just hadn't noticed. I glanced across at the giant metal shutter. How did it open? Surely there had to be some device or some mechanism that operated it. As quietly as I could, I stole across the greasy concrete floor, and in the dim light from the glazed panel above, I peered along the entire length of the shutter's base. I couldn't see anything remotely resembling a handle or a lever. Breathlessly, I scanned both sides of the wall and at last spotted a switch on the left-hand side. It took me just a second to decide. It would make an appalling noise, but what choice did I have? I flicked up the switch. Nothing. I flicked it the other way. Still nothing happened. What was wrong with it? Why didn't the fucking thing open? I flicked it on, off, on again before realising that this kind of automatic locking system operated not mechanically but electronically, and there was no power. I cursed myself for not remembering that. I circled the space, looking for a hiding place. An upturned pallet was propped up on the corner of the right-hand wall. Perhaps they wouldn't see me if I crouched behind it. I approached. The smell was far stronger here, but this was not the time to be squeamish about a dead rat or mouse. I was about to pull the pallet away from the wall when my shoe struck something. I looked down and bit back a scream. A foot in a black ankle boot. I eased the pallet towards me. There was the body of a woman. I couldn't see her face because she had been folded in two, so that her hands grazed her ankles, but I recognised her hair. Even in the dim light, the magenta streaks in her dark hair glowed faintly. It was Paula. I flinched violently back as waves of heat swept over my body, and then instantly I felt ice cold, cold, and very sick. The men's voices were louder now, and again that squeak of metal on concrete. Desperately, I looked about me. The shelves. If I could only haul myself up, I might, in the poor light, go unnoticed. Within seconds, I was across the room and facing the recess furthest away from the shutter. I made a scrambling jump for it, swinging my arms high and then gripping down hard with my hands onto the gritty surface of the ledge. For a terrible moment, I swung there uselessly, not sure I would have enough strength to pull myself up. Breathing heavily with one mighty push, I propelled myself aloft, kicking up with my legs, until at last I managed to get a purchase on the shelf. Thrusting myself forward, my body fishtailing, I slithered into the dark cavity, an inch at a time, my neck muscles in spasm with the burrowing movement, but I had to keep on. Dust filled my nose and throat, and I fought desperately to control a sneeze. My eyes blinked, trying to accustom themselves to the darkness, which was so thick I could taste it. Another inch, and then another. I was nearly there. In a few more seconds, I would be safely hidden away. But abruptly, my progress was checked. Something at my waist was stopping me. Clutching with one hand, I fumbled and fought to free whatever it was. It was my handbag. I'd looped it over my shoulder and across my chest, where it now had me jammed like a rat in a drainpipe. My other hand flailed impotently across the dirt, and I felt a nail tear cruelly against something that stuck up, razor-like. I bit my lip to stop the tears that were now forming. Over the thudding of my heart, I could hear that the men were almost at the door. No time to think. I yanked hard on the shoulder strap of my bag. It gave, and I pressed forward. The space was too narrow to accommodate my length and too low to allow me to sit upright, and so I twisted painfully onto my side, facing outwards. The men entered the room, and I closed my eyes tight, working on some desperate hope, like a child afraid of a bogeyman in the dark, that if I couldn't see them, then they wouldn't be able to see me. "Nah, there's no one here," said Gary. "Right, let's move it over there and get her out of here. Fucking hell, she stinks." I opened my eyes. They had their backs to me. The second man was pushing something before him, but I couldn't make out what it was. I watched as he pulled back the pallet and grabbed Paula by the ankles. Her body, which had collapsed down on itself, shifted with the movement, and for a terrible moment, as Gary stooped and lifted her by the arms, I caught a glimpse of her face. It was discoloured, and it was bloated, and I knew that I would never forget the sight of it. As the two men swung her up and into whatever it was they were pushing, I was reminded of those flickering black and white images on film of the guards at Auschwitz, heaping bodies in grotesque piles, as if they were dolls or the carcasses of animals, not human beings at all. I could see now that she had been dumped into a wheelbarrow, and I watched as they manhandled and forced her limbs to fit within its narrow confines. Gary then tucked a tarpaulin over her, and they trundled the wheelbarrow away and out through the door, with its contents suggesting merely an innocent load of bricks or tools. But there was nothing innocent about its load. The wheelbarrow carried away the lifeless body of Paula and her unborn child. Thank you. Thank you.